And now you look at the Brock, and then you look at the guy who sort of perfected the whole Cubist adventure, and that's this noble painter. I mean, if you can ever call a painter noble, to me, Gris is that. Gris has this feeling of an absolute form and an enormous sort of, I don't know how to put it, an elegance and perhaps to some people it's even cold. I mean, I've told you the story that when I first would visit Mondrian and I recited all the painters I love to Mondrian, you know, all of Mondrian, I love Léger, I love art, and then I said I love Gris, and he stopped me and said, "Don't you find him a bit intellectual, a bit too intellectual and cold?" You know, and I remember the word cold and the word intellectual, and I didn't dare answer Mondrian because you know, Papa Mondrian, I love Mondrian. On the other hand, if I had the guts to answer Mondrian, perhaps I should have said, well, it's like looking at Seurat. If that's intellectualism or coldness, that's the same thing. It's like a cold fire. It's like a piece of dry ice. It burns your hand. And I think Gris has that. He has the most distinguished kind of color. I mean, if you look at, and I particularly like the color in a lot of the late Gris. His color gets better and better. This is not necessarily it's a 1916 Gris. It's the Gris preferred by most of the museums. But I follow Gris right through to the end, to 1927. But look what he does with these grays and these blacks, and how cleverly he just used this light gray that's here, which was perhaps much more white when it was painted, against and it's sort of cool against this warm piece of the newspaper here, and how this is like that and that falls down like that, and this beautiful thing of the control he gets with these colors. Look, you've got three browns in this thing, really. You've got the main brown. It's a beautifully felt. It acts. It's not as luminous as these forms, but it acts like, hey man, look, I'm a lively color against these other colors. It's that beautiful red earth here, and then he darkens it here. You know, this piece of the table edge here, he darkens it with that brown, and then he gets this crazy brownish kind of color that he gets in here. And those three notes are so precisely stated, and the mysterious rapport between those three notes says so much, it has such emotion to it. It's quite beautiful. And how he plays with these blacks, how he loves to do this. He'll establish the stability of vertical against the horizontal, and suddenly he'll throw you off by doing this. Now, wham, like that, and then, boom, he throws you off like that. Then he throws you over further thing like that, and then he comes down like that. You know, everything. He's a remarkable guy, and I salute him. I must show you, I only can do it with slides, unfortunately, because you don't see that many of the kind of Gris I'm talking about. I'll try to show you late Gris on slides, inadequate as that is. And actually, what I'd like to do, I want to get to the Van Goghs, and I want to get to the Mondrian, so maybe I was going to talk about the other Brocks, but maybe instead, actually, there's a nice Picasso there, but let me get to the Van Goghs. That beautiful thing of the young woman with the picture hat in a field of poppies at the museum, and there's something about, first of all, Van Gogh's color that always moved me so much. The kind of color, for instance, in these two marvelous paintings, or three paintings we have here, and also something about his wholehearted identification with what he paints. The fact that he gets so deeply into what he paints. And, you know, here are these paving stones, they're repaving the street, and you have these huge trunks of these trees coming up like that, and he works this weird harmony with the color. It's like so alive, the color. It's so marvelous, the color. These crazy glacial kind of grayish greens that he established here with their cool lights and warm lights on them. And then he comes behind the trees with that yellowish flame here, and with that note of red in the window curtains, and a little note of red here, and the red in the guy's cap, and the red here. And it's such a beautiful feeling of total identification with what he has in front of him. It could be almost too linear, but then you begin to see what he does with the color, and it really does do something quite remarkable. And the same thing with this beautiful painting of the garden here of Arles. He throws himself into the thing so passionately, he identifies so warmly with it, and you begin to feel this empathy with the painting, and how he'll use that great light thing, sort of a navel kind of yellow that he gets here, quite light, that role played by that orangey ochre that he established here, the guy standing in cerulean blue here, and these notes of ultramarine, and he really gives you that marvelous engagement with that landscape. So distant, so far from the way, I'm sure Cezanne would have disliked this enormously. To him it would be, Chinese painting, something that was far from him. But still, there's something that's so moving in that painting. And another guy I never talk about today is Daumier. That's a nice Daumier behind him. A very nice painting. I always like that painting here. It moves me very much. It's really, you can get a lot just from looking at the lithographs of Daumier, the prints of Daumier, the way he gets the folds in the garments, the way he gets the gestures of the people. There's always a truth to it and an immediacy to it. It's quite remarkable. And I think he didn't do it right on the spot. He would go to his studio and remember these things. He had a fantastic memory for these forms that he observed. What I'd like to do is to move down to the Mondrian. I want to talk about a specific Mondrian, and then I want to go up to a clay. So geographically, we have to do some walking. And I'm going to do some drinking, of water here before we walk. But the Mondrian's downstairs where we're going to go. I saw many things like this in Mondrian's studio. Things he took from France to England, and then to New York, and he continued working on it in New York. And looking at this Mondrian and thinking about what I've been saying about the other paintings, it's this, and I think I use the expression paintings of putting things in their place. When you look at the Mondrian and you see he makes a division. He has a white plane, and then he has a black plane. I'm talking in terms of these parallel verticals, let's say. A white plane, a black plane, then that large white plane here, and a much larger white plane here, and then a white plane this size to a white plane this size to a little white plane here, and he begins to really get a movement going that way, and then he begins to make these horizontal divisions that he gets. Similar kind of thing happens, the tension of pushing up like that, and then the thing opening that way. Look what he does. Look how he gets that yellow plane here, and how that yellow plane is contained there, and these reds come shooting over here like that, and then shoot down like here, and come around to here. It's amazing. Like that, and here, down in here. They seem to have a traction or a velocity to them. It's though happens like that, and here comes out like that. Constantly, as you move back and forth in the painting, you get the feeling it's a fantastically contained object. It's a fantastically contained object in which every one of these forms, whether it's one of these black planes, one of these white planes, one of these red planes, one of the yellow planes, every form has a space, has a position rather, which has an emotional determination to it. A feeling as though it's inevitable and it's at the optimum of its activity. My God, I have this, and it all comes together. And the more you look, the more the thing becomes something real. There's something real there. And yet, you want abstract painting. This guy went the furthest I think you can go. They talk about the Russian supremacists and some nice Malevich and things like that. No one like Mondrian. Mondrian was able, in some way, to project a sensation. As I was talking in front of that Matisse, and I said, you saw a curtain over here, and you saw the Seine and the arch of the bridge. And then you came out here and you saw the architecture of the side of the window, and they're all in different parts of space. And that happens with Mondrian. This isn't a flat painting. This isn't a flat painting. I mean, it's just space all over the place. And yet, it's a very interesting thing. What is Mondrian doing? Mondrian's religion almost was a horror. Later, Mondrian was talking about. A horror of the appearance of things. It's as though the appearance of things, that's so much dross we have to shun, that we jettison that. The hell with that. No. I don't want to be, I want it as neutral as possible. I want an absolute neutrality, absolute form, absolute neutrality. He had some sort of utopian ideas, some sort of very Calvinist tendencies in his personality. All of that is beside the point finally. I mean, I myself, for instance, am engaged in dealing with the appearance. I want a structure, I would love to have a structure as effective and powerful and human and deep and probing as the Mondrian, but I also want to sort of invent something which will accommodate the appearance of things. Mondrian said, the hell with the appearance of things. I accept that. This is Mondrian's liberation. It's his freedom. Now, Durand, and the late Durand, which corresponded 43-42, Durand of 43-42, is very far away from Mondrian. I mean, he'll do this marvelous thing with the canal at Amiens. He'll do these incredible kitchen still lifes. And that's his liberation and freedom. And the important thing to realize about both these painters, who seem to be at opposite poles, is that each of them is dealing honestly with the elements of form and color. And that's all we could ask of painters, to deal honestly and probe reality at its deepest level. And this is probing reality at its deepest level. Let me be nasty just for a moment. At the National Gallery, I happened to look, and I saw what I thought was an enlarged pocket handkerchief. It was a painting by Kenneth Nolan. It was a plaid by Kenneth Nolan. It was by, I looked, and the doorway I looked through, so powerful. The doorway had vertical and horizontal, like that, like, a brick outhouse. But I looked at the Nolan, and it goes, can't do that with Mondrian. Mondrian will demolish the doorway. So Mondrian reaches a level of reality. Nolan reaches nothing but an affected piece of nothing. And I think that he is in no way a precursor to the kind of degeneration of painting represented by that particular painting by Nolan. That's my nastiest for today. I'm going to go to the play, and I hope we can get to see the Courbet and the Giacometti and the later Rouault, which I neglected.